and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I am crafting with Yana's latest collection called Anemone Blooms, and I thought I would start off with using some of my shimmer powders, which I have quite a few of, but don't pull out nearly as often as I should. So I want to put these to use. One of them is actually from the latest color trend. I think it's Coral Skies. And the other has released, I think it's been released and out there for a while now. And I am working on watercolor paper because this is one of those techniques where I feel like I don't want to be shy or conservative about how much water I'm using. I want to gauge how much water I use based on the look and the effect that I'm getting, because with shimmer powders, what's really awesome is they bloom and activate when water is applied to it. So the way that I like to work with them, because you can kind of just do what you feel works for you, lots of different ways to play with them. I like to mist a little bit of water onto my whatever substrate I'm using, so my watercolor paper in this case. And the reason why I like to have just a light misting of water is because that initially gives something to grab the powder. And I find that when I don't do that, when I spray, some of the powder just goes off the paper sometimes, even just from the force of the spray and all of that. So I find that sprinkling a little bit of the powder onto a surface that's a little bit wet helps to grab that pigment, the powder, and keep it, a little bit more in place where I want. Because I do, as you saw, kind of intentionally sprinkle in different areas, especially when I'm mixing two different shimmer powders like I did this time. And so after that, then I give it more misting of water. And then you can kind of just play and see what effect is happening and see all of the different colors that bloom and start to just appear as if by magic. So really, really great. And the thing that I like to do is I like to just let it dry naturally so that the color just begins to blend and soak into the papers, go where they need to go, blend with whatever else is there. And I feel, for me personally, in the aesthetic that I like, that I get a nice softer finish, which in my mind reads a little bit more like watercoloring, as opposed to taking a heat gun to it. Often I find, and maybe I'm using the heat gun incorrectly, but I find when I artificially speed up the drying process by taking a heat gun to it, I get the watermarks, sort of the rings, where maybe an area out towards the edges starts to dry faster, and then as you kind of keep heat applied to a particular area, that water sort of starts to pull towards the center, and you might get some different watermarks or some different rings. And so that look, I think, is definitely very interesting and really cool, but often not exactly what I'm going for. So I let this panel just dry on its own. In the particular die set that I'm using here, you have two dies. You have one that's an outside cutting edge, and that's what I use to cut my panel from. And then I use the second die to cut from, it's not quite gold. It might be a gold. I'm not sure what color it is exactly, because it might be a little bit more bronzy, but it's not super, super dark. So I'm not sure if it's really a bronze. And it's not, I don't think it's copper either. So it's a very strange color, but I love it. And my idea was that this would be the border, and the watercolor panel would be how I color the flowers. But when I use the outside cutting edge to cut my panel, it does leave a little bit of a outside border beyond this, and that right there, just looking at it, looks wonderful too. So I might, next time I craft with this die set, I might actually keep it even more simple and just use this die cut here, and not even color, or maybe do some selective coloring. We'll see. But what I did instead of using my watercolor panel that I cut in full using that outside edge die is I used the exact same die that I cut out of this mirror card, foil card, and I cut my panel, which was a little scary because you just made that panel, and and for me, sometimes when I put some effort into making a background, it's so hard to cut into it. But the nice thing about shimmer powders, well, the good and the bad of it is that every time you play with them, it's completely different, completely unique. So if you're absolutely in love with a final result, you're never really going to be able to replicate that, because the pigments, especially when you're mixing two different shimmer powders like I was, the pigments are just going to go where they go, and it's a mix of different colors, and so you never know what's going to come out with every shake of the bottle, and you don't know where that's going to go when you spray it with water. So if you absolutely love a panel, it can be really hard to cut into it if you're not 100% sure that that's what you want to do. But in the end, I figure it's just paper and powder and water. So if nothing else, it can always make up another panel. So what I've done here is, as I mentioned, I used that same die to cut into my watercolor panel. Now, this watercolor paper that I'm working with is pretty thick, and generally that should be the case with watercolor paper because it is designed to take a lot of water without buckling, without pilling, without degrading the paper. And so often you'll find that it's pretty thick. And as a result of that, the die had a hard time cutting through this completely, but I can't fault the die because I use a really very different sandwich combination in my platinum machine. So I used the base that came with the original platform, not the universal plate system, but the original one that came with it. Then I use the scrapbook.com magic mat because I feel like that saves me the cost of cutting into plastic cutting plates. And I have the big A4 size platinum, not the small 6-inch platinum, but I like to use a 6-inch plate because it just rolls through faster. And so I use the small 6-inch plate from my Cuttlebug. So I'm not using plates that were prescribed to go with the platinum. And so as a result, sometimes if I'm not getting consistent die cutting results, I never blame the dies because I'm using something that's so custom in terms of the sandwich combination. So just wanted to clarify that so that if you're seeing me struggle with die cutting, it's not the die, it's because I just use a very different plate combination in my machine. So I've got everything inlaid here, and then this is another fantastic glimmer set that's part of the collection, and it has a lot of sentiments that you can mix and match and combine, where there's this gorgeous script. I don't know if this is Yana's handwriting, but it's beautiful, and you have several words in that large scripty handwriting font, but then you have a lot of smaller words that you can combine. And what I have on my storage sheet here is actually 2 different glimmer sets, and the item numbers are on the labels of those sheets. So you have that as one set, and then as the other set you have longer sentiments, which are great for the inside of your card, and I have never considered glimmering the inside of my card or creating maybe an insert for the inside of your card. I love that, and I'm definitely going to be giving that a try. It's so often I forget the inside of the card completely. So I love that there's some more options now to help remind me to focus and give a little love and attention to the inside of the card as well. So I'm using the negative foiling of this sentiment, which is one where I've combined a small sentiment or phrase before this larger word, and then added another small little sentiment or phrase after. And I never show glimmering on my channel, but I will definitely put together a video where I do actually do some glimmering on camera, because the way that I glimmer is I'll often, when I get these products, I'll just glimmer everything that I get. And these products all release at different times, but sometimes I get them all at the same time. And so while my machine is nice and hot, I like to do as much glimmering as possible, and it's just fun that way. I can just have a good 2-3 hour glimmer session, and then when I'm done, I just tuck these panels into my storage sheet for when I want to craft with it. And I try to glimmer a lot of different options and a lot of choices so that I can, because I never know what I'm gonna make when I'm sitting down to glimmer. So I don't have a plan. I just have a goal to glimmer as much as possible. So here I use the negative of the sentiment panel, and since it's me combining a couple sentiments and phrases, there's no die that will cut out this exactly as you see it. So that's why I've just trimmed it into this nice rectangle and combined it with my floral design. I hope that you enjoyed this card, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Thanks. Bye.